So first of all, what does concatenate mean? Concatenate is when you join two or more things together into one single thing. So in SQL, when we talk about concatenate, we're talking about joining together data from multiple columns and returning it in one single column. And we do that using the concat function. So you can see here we have select concat, and then we have a pair of brackets with two columns inside. So we have concat open bracket column 1 comma column 2 close bracket, and that means we're concatenating these two columns together as a new column, so as new column name from a table. So this is going to join column 1 and column 2, or the data from column 1 and column 2, and return it in one column. So let's go through an example from our cinema booking system database. We can select the first and last name from our customers table and return it as one column. So let's concatenate the first and last name columns together. So we can write concat, open a pair of brackets, and within the brackets we can write our column names. So the first one is first name, comma, last name, and then we can set our new column name. So this is like setting column aliases. So we can say as full name, as it will be returning their first and last name. We can call the new column full name from customers, end with a semicolon, and then we can run this SQL query and see what we get. So you can see here it's returned one column called full name, but it's joined the data from the first name and the last name columns. So you can see we've got Teresa, which is first name, and then Davis, last name, Jerry Martin, John Smith, Martin Watkins, Emma Watson, etc., etc. So it's concatenated the data from two columns and returned it as a single column. Now you can probably also see that there's a slight problem with the data that it's returned, in that there's no space between the first name and the last name. So it's literally returned first name, last name, no space. So we need to know how we can add a space between columns when we concatenate. And it's quite simple if we just copy and paste this query, because it's not going to change much. We can go into our brackets, and between the first name and the last name we can add another comma, and then between these two commas we can actually add a space by putting double brackets, space, double brackets. And what's happening here is actually concatenating three strings. So the first string is first name, which is going to be concatenated with this space, which is then going to be concatenated with this last name column. So let's run this. And you can see that's much better. We've now got a space between our first name and our last name. So there's no limit to the number of things, the number of strings you can concatenate. You can do 2, 3, 4, etc. So let's look at an example where we return 3 columns of data in one single column. So let's copy and paste our query again, the one with the space. And now let's also return the email column, but let's put a space between the last name and the email so it's readable. Now we want to return the email column. So you can see here we're actually concatenating 5 strings together. 3 rows of data, or 3 columns of data plus 2 spaces. And you can see here it's returned Teresa Davis plus her email address, Jerry Martin plus his email address, and so on. And between the double quotes we can actually put any string we like. So if we come and do one final example, let's copy and paste our last query, and we can actually put whatever we like here. So let's try something a bit more complicated. Let's type this is space comma first name, so the first name column, comma last name, Actually, we want a space between the first and last name. And then in this space here, let's type '(s) space email colon space email. So let's see what this returns. And you can see it's returned, this is first name space last name's email followed by the email. And you can see our column name is full name, which isn't a good description of the column data. So let's just put customers email. Run that query again. And you can see now we have a column return called customers email. And the data says this is customers email followed by their email address. And one final thing, if we don't have the column name alias, so we just say select concat first name last name from customers, you can see the column name returned is actually concat first name last name, so it returns this part as the column name. So it's not mandatory to put as full name or to state a column name alias, but obviously it makes much more sense to do so. You get a much better column name, it makes more sense. So that's it for concatenating data in SQL.